What happens to a cooperative species when cooperation slowly becomes unnecessary? That's not a philosophical question. It's a structural one. Our species built cities, economies, institutions, and entire civilizations by learning to trust people we had never met. Strangers, millions of them. And for most of human history, that ability to cooperate was tested constantly, reinforced constantly. Now something is quietly removing those tests. Not through conflict, not through war, through convenience. And we're only beginning to understand what disappears when cooperation becomes optional. For most of human history, human contact wasn't something you scheduled. It just happened. You saw the same faces, the same shopkeepers, the same neighbors, the same coworkers, not because you liked them, because life kept bringing you together. And over time, something invisible happened. Familiarity, trust, community. Then technology started removing friction, not all at once. One convenience at a time. 20 years ago, ordering dinner usually meant talking to someone. Buying something usually meant meeting someone. Entertainment often meant leaving the house. Today, you can eat, shop, work, watch movies, and spend an entire day without speaking to another human being. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Most of these inventions improved our lives. The problem is that every convenience quietly removed a small opportunity for human connection. We didn't choose isolation. We chose convenience. Isolation was simply the hidden cost. Most people think loneliness is just sadness, but loneliness is actually a signal, a warning, your brain's way of saying you need people. For most of human history, being alone was dangerous, which means loneliness evolved to push us back toward other people. The problem begins when that signal never turns off. And here's the part almost nobody talks about. When loneliness becomes chronic, it doesn't just make you sad, it rewires your brain. Neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent decades studying isolated people. What he found was genuinely disturbing. The lonely brain doesn't become more open to connection. It becomes more vigilant for threat. It starts scanning every interaction for danger, reading neutral faces as hostile, interpreting ambiguous messages as rejection. In other words, the people who need connection most become biologically worse at forming it. Left alone long enough, loneliness starts defending itself, which means this isn't just a personal problem. Scale that biology across millions of people at the same time, and you don't get a sad society. You get a paranoid one. Think about how many modern experiences feel familiar. You send a message. Hours pass, no reply. Suddenly your brain starts writing a story. Are they upset? Did I do something wrong? Are they ignoring me? Or a friend cancels plans. Rationally, you know they're busy. Emotionally, it feels personal. Then comes the strangest part. You open social media. Hundreds of faces, hundreds of conversations, hundreds of lives. And somehow, you still feel alone. The more isolated people become, the easier it becomes to assume the worst about each other. A misunderstanding becomes a conflict. A disagreement becomes an enemy. A stranger becomes a threat. And when millions of people start feeling this way at the same time, trust begins to disappear. The real danger isn't that people become lonely. The real danger is that loneliness becomes normal, and the data is beginning to confirm it. According to a 2025 national survey by the Cigna Group, covering more than 7,500 American adults, 57% of Americans qualify as lonely, not occasionally disconnected, not temporarily isolated, chronically, measurably lonely. Younger generations score even higher. the generation that grew up more digitally connected than any generation before it, is also the loneliest generation ever recorded. Children learn how to live by watching adults. If every generation spends a little less time together, eventually, isolation stops feeling unusual. It starts feeling natural. Human interaction starts feeling optional, then inconvenient, then exhausting. And that's when something larger begins to break. Because every civilization is built on trust. Trusting strangers, trusting institutions, trusting people you've never met, the bridges, the cities, the economies. None of them were built by isolated individuals. They were built by millions of people working together towards something bigger than themselves. Think about what trust actually is. It's not an idea. It's not a principle. It's a residue, left behind by thousands of small, unremarkable interactions. The neighbor who nodded back, the clerk who remembered your name, the stranger who held the door. None of these interactions felt important, but repeated across a lifetime, across an entire society. They created something invisible, yet load-bearing. A shared sense that people, in general, are okay. Remove the interactions, and you don't just remove the warmth. You remove the evidence. And without that evidence, the brain defaults to its oldest assumption. Strangers are dangerous. The strangest part of this story is that nobody intended for it to happen. People wanted convenience, efficiency, comfort, safety, reasonable things, human things. But civilization has always depended on something that feels inefficient. The willingness to encounter people we didn't choose, the patience to tolerate friction, the courage to trust strangers. Because trust isn't created by algorithms. It's built through repeated human contact, tiny moments, tiny interactions, tiny threads. Perhaps the future won't be decided by artificial intelligence, or quantum computers, or space travel. Perhaps it will be decided by something far older. Whether human beings can still tolerate the presence of other human beings. Because every civilization in history was built from countless invisible threads of trust. And once those threads disappear, technology may discover that it has nothing left to connect.